It is Friday, April 14th, and my name is Bill McCamley. I'm a state representative from Las Cruces and Mesilla with your legislative update for the day. I just got back from Santa Fe for a week where I was up discussing the current situation that we have in our state regarding our budget and vetoes, and I wanted to go over some of that with you. So once again, we have a lot of budget problems here in New Mexico. We are very over-reliant on oil and gas revenue because we cut taxes on wealthy individuals, corporations, and investment money, which is basically helping those in the upper tax brackets. The businesses that were supposed to come around from that did not happen, and therefore we're in a budget shortfall. So we don't have enough money to really fund our education system, state cops, social workers, job creation programs, et cetera, and so on, with the current revenue we have now. So what happened? The legislature this year sent a budget that increased education a little bit, increased job creation a little bit, increased courts a little bit, did some modest cuts elsewhere, along with a revenue package where we gave the governor 7 or 8 different types of revenue increases she could look at in order to get a balanced budget. Well, last Friday, she vetoed that entire package, as well as all of the higher education funding for New Mexico. So that's about $700 million, and without it, universities will cease to exist. And there are some problems with that, right? So you've got education issues, you've got economic development issues, especially since small business development centers, a lot of incubators are part of the higher education institutions. You got healthcare problems. UNM Hospital, where a lot of people go for cancer treatment, is part of the higher education institution. And agriculture. So the Department of Agriculture, as well as all of the extension offices, there's one in every county throughout the state to help with agricultural services, are part of New Mexico State University. So if higher education doesn't exist, neither does the Department of Agriculture. So there's about 4 different types of scenarios that happen. Number one is that we can't get any deal done between now and July 1st, and the higher education system as we know it ceases to function with all that stuff I just described. Number two, the legislature filed a lawsuit with the Supreme Court, basically saying that the governor cannot completely veto an entire series of constitutionally set up offices, which are the universities, as well as the entire legislature. So she vetoed the legislature as well. And the legislature will ask the Supreme Court to say, hey, this isn't right. You can't make this unilateral decision with a line item veto. And if that happens, then yes, there is a budget, but we once again don't have enough money to pay for it. So we would probably back in the fall, September or October, trying to figure out what to do with the revenues that we have at that time. The third scenario is that the legislature calls ourselves into what is called extraordinary session. And we've already started that process where legislators can sign on to a letter. I've already done this. I was in Santa Fe and the letter was there to call ourselves back into session. Now, we would need 4 Republicans in the House and some Republicans in the Senate to make that happen. Furthermore, if we wanted to override her vetoes, we would need 9 Republicans to sign on to an override of a veto. And so for all of you on social media saying, override the governor, well, 9 Republicans in the House and less in the Senate, I think 4 or 5 in the Senate, would need to vote with every single Democrat to override all those vetoes. So it's not something that you can just do. But that is a scenario if Republicans decide that they want colleges and universities to exist here in the state of New Mexico, then we would make that work. The last thing is that the governor could call a special session. Now, 3 things could happen there. Either one, we could override the veto that we talked about before. We could come to an agreement with the governor's office. That's been really hard for a reason I'll explain in a little bit. Or we could just adjourn and go home and say, we're not here with any sort of agreement, and we're not going to spend $50,000 a day of taxpayer money meeting when there's no agreement. So that's kind of where we're at. I have 3 last thoughts. Number one, the governor needs a plan. She has not given us any kind of concrete strategy of what she wants to pursue in terms of a budget or a revenue package. It just doesn't exist. And in order for us to negotiate, we have to know what she wants. And we don't have that information. The second thing is that there could be some folks in the legislature who want to play this out. This is a negotiation tactic where They look at the governor and say, hey, look, you need to make a decision and we're not going to back down. We sent you everything that we've thought was good. That was our compromise. And you need to make a decision that you either want to stick by your guns and kill all of higher education in Mexico or do the responsible thing and sign our stuff. The last thing is that, the problem I have with that strategy and that as we move forward here is everybody loses. If we don't fix the higher education system, all those problems happen. But even without that, you're already seeing some professors decide not to come to universities. Higher education institutions at the community college level have already tabled their entire budgets. And it just seems like the state can't get off our back foot, to use a boxing analogy. We've got to get on our front foot and fix some of our problems. And we just don't seem to be doing that. And that's really, really frustrating. So that's where we're at. As always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns on these or any other issues, I would love to hear from you. We'll be back at it, trying to make something happen here in the next week. Thanks, everybody. And hope everyone has a wonderful and happy Easter if that is something that you celebrate. Thanks. Bye.